today with Dr. Marta Herr, who just came from Sao Paulo to teach Brazilian art song history and interpretation and Brazilian Portuguese diction at the Barcelona Festival of Song. Welcome, Dr. Marta Herr.
Good afternoon.
And I would like people to know about you, about what you became interested in Brazilian music, something about your life. So I know it's a very open question, but tell us how you got interested in Brazilian music.
Well, I moved to Brazil 32 years ago, and I intended to just stay for a short period of time, and then 2 years, and 2 more years, and 2 more years, and so 32 years later, and little by little I got involved in Brazilian music, which is it's very exciting, it's beautiful, and it really was something that interested me a lot. I became very involved. My first teachers for singing in Portuguese were other singers, and in 1980, from 1980 to 1990, I sang in a vocal quintet called the Mestres Cantores de São Paulo, and I was by far the youngest of the members of the quintet. They were all masters, as it were, teachers and very, very well-known singers. And so I had an opportunity to sing with these wonderful singers and to learn to sing in Portuguese from them. And a couple of them had, well, actually three of them had done the premiere performances of I don't know how many pieces of Brazilian music, and knew all the composers personally, and so it was really a wonderful opportunity to get started that way. Then doing more and more and more, and I perform a lot more Brazilian music than many Brazilians. And one of the things that always interested me was the idea of the diction of the Brazilian Portuguese. I teach diction at the State University of São Paulo, UNESCO, and we obviously need to start our diction course with Portuguese, and there was nothing organized about this, really. In 1937, they had the Primeiro Congresso da Língua Nacional Cantada, the first national congress of the national language as sung. But this was in 1937, and the way people speak today is different than it was in 1937, and partly because of radio and television, which has changed the vision that people have of their language. When they made their rules for pronunciation, they didn't use phonetics. So it's some of the sounds that they describe the sound, and it's very difficult even for Brazilians to understand exactly what
they are
talking
doing
about. Yeah, so but basically singers still until recently were using the rules as set up in 1937, but without them being very organized or very well taught.
And did you find, you said you are one of the few who you perform mainly Brazilian music, and you have been performing it for many years. Did you have had any resistance from people in Brazil? I mean, if they saw you performing a lot of Brazilian music, what was their reaction?
Well, the reaction usually is, oh, when you speak Portuguese, you have an accent, but when you sing, you don't. But they didn't mind that I was singing Brazilian music.
But I'm wondering if they appreciated that you being born in other place, you are interested in their musicians, in their music and musicians. If you have really been an example for young Brazilian musicians to really appreciate their own music.
I think so. Yes. And I do a lot of contemporary music also. So, especially in the area of contemporary vocal music, I know that I am a model for young singers. But even singing regular Brazilian music. For example, Jonas was very surprised. Jonas Skilbo, the guitar player, was very surprised. He works with a Brazilian violinist who said, "Oh yes, Herr, I know her." And he told me his name, and I said, "Well, I know who he is because I know his uncle, but I've never met him." He says, "But he knows you because he's seen me on stage doing either Brazilian music or other repertoire, but he's seen me and he knows of me, not that he knows me."
And when you arrived to Brazil, I'm talking about my own experience in Colombia, for example, where Colombians or institutions, conservatories and music schools are very European oriented, and the training is based, for example, for singers in Italian, French and German repertoire. Is like that in Brazil, and how they receive your interest in promoting also in schools Brazilian music?
I created the vocal program at the State University of São Paulo, and so the repertoire list from the very beginning has had Brazilian repertoire.
Great.
Yeah, Brazilian, and they have to sing in Italian and German and French and Portuguese and modern music and early music and a little bit of everything. Pretty much all of the universities, I think, include Brazilian music in their repertoire lists, but we have more than most schools do. And I have now, for example, a doctoral student who is working on a thesis where he's making an anthology of Brazilian songs to be the basis for vocal training, because you should learn to sing in your native language first.
Yeah.
So, because once you can express yourself well vocally in your own language, it's easier to learn other languages. So he's taking Brazilian songs and creating an anthology that goes from very simple to more difficult, and from songs all the way to opera arias in Portuguese.